The 2022 wide receiver class was expected to be one of the better ones in recent memory, and in today's video, I thought I would combine some college and NFL football as we're going to go through how all 6 of these wide receivers have done throughout the first few weeks of NFL action. We're to bring you up to speed on their college careers, their expectations, and then obviously how they've done, and we will assign each one of them a grade. The video is pretty self-explanatory, but before we can get started, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support the channel, leave a topic I could do in my next video down below, and turn on notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now let's go ahead and get started. So there are obviously 6 wide receivers that were taken in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft, and we will start from the one who was taken the lowest, in Treylon Burks from Arkansas. Treylon Burks was always a big-time recruit coming out of high school, as he was from the city of Warren, Arkansas, and was ranked as the #1 player in the state. At 6'3", 225 pounds, he was listed as a 4-star recruit and the number 16 wide receiver in the class of 2019. He would arrive as part of the Chad Morris era at Arkansas, which, if you're familiar with Arkansas football, are the dark days of the program. In his first year in 2019, he was one of the lone bright spots. He finished with 29 catches for 475 yards without a touchdown, and Arkansas had one of their worst seasons in school history. Luckily, after that, Sam Pittman was hired, and Treylon's career began to really take off. He'd catch 51 passes for 820 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was seen as one of the top receiver prospects in the country, and he built upon that in 2021 with an insane year. He finished with one of the best receiving seasons in Arkansas history, as he caught 66 passes for 1,104 yards and 11 touchdowns. Burks finished his 3-year Arkansas career with 146 receptions for 2,399 yards and 18 touchdowns, and he is one of the top statistical receivers ever. He was a great athlete, a productive receiver, and a guy with a really high ceiling, so after the Tennessee Titans got rid of A.J. Brown, they decided to take him. So how has he done in his first 2 games? Well, in their first game against the Giants, he was targeted 5 times and he caught 3 passes for 55 yards. This past weekend against Buffalo, he was targeted 6 times and finished with 4 catches for 47 yards. He has yet to score a touchdown or break the 100-yard mark, but he is at least contributing and he looks decent. For now, I'm going to give him a B-. Our next receiver is Jahan Dotson. Coming out of the state of Pennsylvania, Jahan Dotson went to Nazareth High School and quickly became one of the top receivers in all of high school football. He was so good that he decided to commit to UCLA early on, but then would later flip to Penn State, stating that he wanted to go home and play for the big school there. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the number 6 player in the state of Pennsylvania, the number 36 wide receiver, and a top 200 player in the class of 2018. Dotson would have a small role as a freshman in 2018, as he finished with 13 catches for 203 yards without a touchdown. In 2019, he'd break out into one of the top receivers on the team, as he finished with 27 catches for 488 yards and 5 touchdowns. With KJ Hamler going off to the NFL, Dotson was expected to be the guy in 2020, and that's exactly what happened. Despite Penn State not having a great season, he finished with 52 catches for 884 yards and 8 touchdowns. Because of that, he was named a 3rd-team All-Big Ten selection, and with a big 2021 campaign, he could increase his draft stock even more. That is exactly what he would do, as in 2021, he'd catch a career-high 91 passes for 1,182 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's one of the top receivers in the Big Ten, and was named a 1st-team All-Big Ten selection because of it. He finished both 2nd in career catches and single-season catches, and top 5 in most of the other receiver categories. He'll leave Penn State as one of the top receivers ever, and he was a projected 1st-round pick. The Washington Commanders needed another receiver to star alongside Terry McLaurin, so they decided to draft Dotson. So far in 2 games, Dotson has really impressed. In their first game against Jacksonville, he was targeted 5 times and caught 3 passes for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. He followed it up with a great Week 2 performance, as against the Lions, he was targeted 5 times with 4 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown. Through 2 games, he has 7 receptions for 99 yards and 3 scores. While he may not be a 1,000-yard receiver as a rookie, Dotson is pretty much doing everything they could ask of him. He's scoring points, and he looks like a young star in the league. Right now, I give him an A+. While Jameson Williams has not yet played a down of NFL football, we can still talk about his story and our expectations for him moving forward. Coming out of Cardinal Ritter Prep, Williams was both a football and a track star, and he decided to go across the country and play for Ohio State. As a true freshman there, he caught 6 passes for 112 yards and a touchdown, and his sophomore campaign was not much better. He had 9 catches for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns, and was stuck on the bench behind Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Chris Olave. Worried about his NFL future, he decided to transfer down south to Alabama, where they were in need of a speedy receiver who was also a veteran. Nick Saban got the perfect player, as Jameson would have a breakout 2021 campaign. He finished with 79 catches for 1,572 yards and 15 touchdowns. He became arguably the best wide receiver in the SEC, was a finalist for the Blitnikoff Award, and was both a first-team All-American and a first-team All-SEC selection. Because of his extreme athleticism and production, Jameson was seen as a first-round level talent, but he hurt his knee late in the season, and whenever team took him, knew he probably was not going to do a whole lot as a rookie. Despite that, the Detroit Lions saw his potential and decided to take him with the 12th overall pick. Obviously, he has not played a down of NFL football, so we can't really give him a grade right now, but I do really like his future, and he was personally my favorite wide receiver prospect from this year's class. Let's see how he does in the future. The next receiver we're going to take a look at is Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints. Back in high school, Olave was not your typical player. He was only a 3-star recruit and the number 68 receiver in the class of 2018. He went to Mission Hills High School in San Marcos, California, and despite being a little bit underrated as a recruit, he'd have a big impact at Ohio State. As a true freshman in 2018, he catch 12 passes for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns, which would set the tone for a breakout 2019 campaign. He became the best receiver on the team, as he finished with 49 catches for 849 yards and 12 scores. 2020, he would now have Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith-Njigba by his side, but he'd still be the top wideout, as he caught 50 passes for 729 yards and 7 scores. He could have left for the 2022 NFL Draft, but he decided he wanted to help Ohio State compete for a title and wanted to break some records along the way. One of those ended up happening, as he caught 65 passes for 936 yards and 13 touchdowns. He had a career year in all 3 categories and broke the Ohio State record for career touchdowns. He was named a first-team All-Big Ten selection in both 2021 and 2020, and many expected him to be a first-round pick. That is exactly what would happen, as the New Orleans Saints would take him with the 11th overall selection. So how has he done so far? Well, in their first game against the Falcons, he was targeted 3 times, where he caught 3 passes for 41 yards without a touchdown. This past weekend against the Buccaneers, he was targeted 13 times, where he had 5 catches for 80 yards without a score and lost a fumble. So far through 2 games, he has 8 catches for 121 yards without a touchdown and a turnover. He's also been targeted 16 times, and right now I would give him a C. That turnover was costly, he has yet to score a touchdown, and he just hasn't impressed me yet. I'm not saying he won't have a great season, but after the first 2 weeks, he gets a C. Unlike Olave, Garrett Wilson was a huge blue-chip recruit coming out of high school. He went to the prestigious Lake Travis High School, which is located in Austin, Texas, and he was one of the top wide receivers in Texas high school football history. This translated to the rankings, as he was the number 2 receiver, a 5-star recruit, and the 20th overall player in the class of 2019. He decided to commit to Ohio State, where he'd have an immediate impact. Wilson would finish with 30 catches for 432 yards and 5 touchdowns as a freshman, and he'd help the Buckeyes get to the college football playoff, where he had a highlight-level catch that really put his name on the map. In 2020, alongside Olave, Wilson improved his numbers. He finished with 43 catches for 723 yards and 6 touchdowns. It was named a first-team All-Big Ten selection because of that. Expectations were through the roof for Wilson in 2021, and he would definitely deliver. He finished with a career-high 70 catches for 1,058 yards and 12 touchdowns, while averaging 15 yards per catch. He ended up becoming a second-team All-Big Ten selection and became the second Buckeye to ever record 4 straight games of 100-plus receiving yards. While he won't go down as the best statistical wide receiver, he could go down as one of the best NFL receivers to come out of Ohio State. The Jets saw so much potential in him that they drafted him with a top 10 pick, as he went 10th overall. The Jets were in desperate need of a superstar receiver, and Garrett Wilson definitely has the potential to live up to that. So how has he done? Well, in their first game against Baltimore, he was targeted 8 times, where he caught 4 passes for 52 yards. This past weekend against the Browns, he had his breakout performance. He was targeted 14 times, in which he caught 8 passes for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. He helped them complete that miracle comeback win, and Wilson right now looks like a star. So far, he has 12 catches for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I give him an A. He has done everything that has been expected of him, and despite having a bad quarterback, has still found a way to put up numbers. I'm really excited to see what Garrett Wilson is going to do in New York, and I think the sky is the limit for him. We now get to our final receiver who was taken in the first round, and that was Drake London. Coming out of Moore Park High School in California, Drake London was your typical 4-star recruit. He was the number 35 receiver and the 247th best player nationally. He was a part of the class of 2019 and decided to commit to Clay Helton at USC. At the time, JT Daniels was the quarterback, but as we all know, Keaton Slovis eventually took over. London became the third-string receiver at USC behind Michael Pittman and Tyler Vaughns. He ended up catching 39 passes for 567 yards and 5 touchdowns, and despite having limited action in 2020, he'd still catch 33 passes for 502 yards and 3 scores. Now both Pittman and Vaughns were gone, so London would become the guy in 2021. Despite USC having a terrible season, London was on historic pace. He finished with 88 receptions for 1,084 yards and 7 touchdowns before he went down with a season-ending injury. Despite that, he was still named the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year and was a first-team All-Pac-12 selection. He only got to play in 7.5 games, but was still seen as a guy who could go in the first round. Pretty much everyone's shock, he was actually the first receiver taken in the 2022 NFL Draft. With Calvin Ridley out for a year because of gambling, the Falcons wanted another receiver to put along their new weapon, Kyle Pitts. They decided to take London with the 8th overall pick, and to some, this was questionable. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter if he performs, so how has he done so far? Well, in their first game against the Saints, he was targeted 7 times and caught 5 passes for 74 yards. In week 2, he'd improved. He got targeted 12 times, where he caught 8 passes for 86 yards and his first career NFL touchdown. So far, he has 13 receptions for 160 yards and a score. While he might not quite be at the same level as Jahan Dotson and Garrett Wilson, I still think London has done a tremendous job, has played up to his draft ranking, and I give him an A. I'm definitely curious to see how his career is going to play out, and if he can stay healthy, he could be one of the top up-and-coming receivers in the league. So yeah, in today's video, we talked about all 6 of this year's first-round draft picks, talked about their college careers, their expectations, and gave them grades so far. But what do you think? What did I get right and wrong? Who is your favorite receiver out of all these guys? And what player, topic, or position group should I take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support the channel, subscribe if you're new here, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.